Two people get paid on the exact same Friday. One of them invests part of it immediately, buys assets, and thinks about how to make that money grow for years. The other says, "I deserve this," spends to relieve stress, orders food, upgrades small things, and promises to save next month. 6 months later, one feels in control. The other feels trapped again, wondering where all the money went. Same economy. Same paycheck. Completely different financial future. And here's the uncomfortable part: the difference usually has nothing to do with intelligence, income, or hard work. It's psychological. Most people don't realize this, but your financial life is often shaped by emotional patterns you learned long before you ever learned how money works. That's why some people make more money and still stay broke. This video isn't about budgeting hacks or side hustles. It's about the invisible behaviors silently controlling your money, and why they keep repeating until you become aware of them. There's a term in psychology called a money script. It's not something you write. It's something that gets written into you. Before you were 10 years old, you were already forming beliefs about money. Not from books. From watching. From listening. From the tension at the dinner table when bills came up. From the way your parents talked, or didn't talk, about what things cost. From the look on someone's face when they said, "We can't afford that." Those moments didn't just pass through you. They stayed. They became rules. Invisible rules that you carry into every financial decision you make as an adult. Some people grew up hearing money is the root of all evil. And they wonder why, every time they start to accumulate something, they find a way to get rid of it. It doesn't feel like self-sabotage. It feels like relief. Some people grew up watching one parent control all the money. And now they either obsess over control themselves, or they hand it over completely to someone else, because that's what love looked like. Some people never saw anyone around them build wealth. Not one person. And somewhere, deep in the back of their mind, wealth became something that happens to other people. People from different neighborhoods. Different families. A different world. Here's the thing about invisible scripts: they don't feel like beliefs. They feel like facts. That's what makes them so hard to break. You're not arguing with an opinion. You're arguing with something that feels like reality itself. And you can read every personal finance book ever written. You can know all the right moves. But if the script is still running underneath, the knowledge doesn't stick. Because the mind will always find a way to protect the story it already believes. This is why broke isn't always a math problem. Sometimes it's a story problem. Here's something that might be hard to hear. For some people, staying broke is comfortable. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because struggle is what they know. And the mind, your mind, my mind, every human mind, will always choose the familiar over the unknown, even when the familiar is painful. Think about that for a second. If you grew up in a household where money was always tight, where stress was the background noise of your childhood, where making it to the end of the month felt like a small victory, then that environment became your baseline. You're normal. And when something becomes normal, the brain stops flagging it as a problem. It starts protecting it. So when an opportunity shows up, a raise, a business idea, an investment that actually makes sense, something strange happens. Instead of excitement, you feel anxiety. Instead of moving forward, you hesitate. You find reasons why it won't work. Why it's too risky. Why now isn't the right time. Psychologists call this the upper limit problem. The idea that each of us has an internal thermostat for how much success, money, or happiness we allow ourselves to experience. And the moment we start to exceed that limit, we unconsciously pull ourselves back down. It's not weakness. It's not stupidity. It's the nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do, keep you inside the boundaries of what feels safe. The problem is, those boundaries were drawn a long time ago. By a child who didn't know any better. In circumstances that no longer exist. You are not that child anymore. But part of your brain never got the update. And so it keeps managing your life according to old data. Old fears. Old ceilings. The question isn't whether you want more. The question is whether some part of you, somewhere deep down, believes you're actually allowed to have it. Because wanting and allowing are two completely different things. And most people spend their whole lives wanting, without ever learning how to allow. Let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. A lot of spending isn't about buying things. It's about feeling something. Or stopping yourself from feeling something else. That bag. That dinner out. That upgrade you didn't need but somehow justified. It wasn't really about the object. It was about the 2 seconds of relief you felt when you bought it. The brief sensation that life was a little better, a little more under control, a little more like what you imagined it should be. There's a reason why retail therapy is called therapy. Because it works. In the short term, it genuinely works. The brain gets a hit of dopamine. The anxiety quiets down. The stress of the week softens, just for a moment. And then the moment passes. And what you're left with is a smaller bank account and the exact same feelings you were trying to escape. Psychologists have been studying this for decades. The connection between emotional regulation and financial behavior is one of the most consistent findings in behavioral economics. People don't overspend because they're irresponsible. They overspend because they're in pain. Because they're lonely. Because they're bored. Because they feel invisible in their daily life, and buying something new, even something small, makes them feel seen. Makes them feel like they exist. That's not a character flaw. That's a human response to unmet needs. But here's where it becomes a trap. When spending becomes your primary tool for managing emotions, you never develop any other tools. So the needs stay unmet. The emotions keep coming. And the spending has to keep up with them. Month after month. Year after year. And then one day you're 40, looking at your savings account, wondering how someone who worked this hard for this long ended up with this little. The answer was never in the numbers. It was in what you were carrying. And what you were using money to avoid carrying. Money spent on numbing isn't money wasted on things. It's the price you paid for not dealing with something that deserved your real attention. That's an expensive bill. And most people never even realize they've been paying it. At some point, something shifts. It stops being a situation. It becomes a story you tell about yourself. I'm just not good with money. You've probably said it. Maybe even laughed while saying it. Like it was a personality trait, the same way someone might say they're bad at cooking or terrible at directions. Something fixed. Something inherited. Something that's just part of who you are. But that sentence is one of the most expensive things a person can say. Because the moment you turn a behavior into an identity, you stop trying to change it. You start defending it. You start collecting evidence that proves it. Every financial mistake becomes confirmation. Every setback becomes proof. And the story grows stronger with every chapter you add to it. Identity is the deepest layer of human psychology. People will give up almost anything before they give up the story of who they are. Relationships. Opportunities. Health. Because changing the story feels like losing yourself. And the brain interprets that as a kind of death. This is why you can hand two people the exact same financial opportunity and get completely different results. One person sees it as a chance. The other sees it as a threat, because success would shatter the image they've spent years building of themselves. There's also a social dimension to this that rarely gets talked about. In certain communities, in certain friend groups, staying broke is a form of belonging. Struggling together creates connection. It creates shared language, shared humor, shared identity. And wealth, or even just stability, can feel like a betrayal of that. So people unconsciously stay small to stay accepted. They shrink their ambitions not because they lack talent, but because succeeding would mean leaving something behind. And sometimes that something is the only place they ever felt like they belonged. That's not a financial decision. That's a survival decision. And until you understand the difference, the numbers will keep not adding up. Because you're solving the wrong equation entirely. Nobody talks about this one directly. But it runs underneath almost everything. There is a quiet, persistent belief that lives inside a lot of people who struggle financially. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up in therapy sessions or dinner conversations. But it's there, working in the background, shaping every decision. The belief is this: I don't deserve more than this. Not in those words. It's never that clean. It shows up as hesitation before negotiating a salary. It shows up as saying yes to the first offer because asking for more feels arrogant. It shows up as giving money away the moment you have it, because holding onto it feels selfish. It shows up as shrinking every time a bigger version of your life tries to come forward. Self-worth and net worth are not the same thing, but they are connected in ways that most financial advice completely ignores. When you don't believe you're worth much, you charge less. You accept less. You ask for less. You settle for less. And you do it with a kind of quiet dignity that looks like humility from the outside but is actually something much more painful on the inside. Here's what took me a long time to understand. Money follows energy. Not in a mystical sense. In a very practical, very human sense. The way you carry yourself in a room determines what rooms you get invited into. The way you value your own time determines how other people value it. The way you talk about your own work determines what people are willing to pay for it. And all of that, every single bit of it, flows from what you believe you're worth at the deepest level. This is the part that makes financial transformation so much harder than it looks. You can change your habits. You can build a budget. You can open an investment account. But if the foundation underneath those actions is a quiet belief that you don't deserve to succeed, the structure won't hold. It never holds. Because you will find a way, a perfectly logical, completely justified way, to tear it back down. Not out of laziness. Not out of failure. But out of a deep, unconscious loyalty to the version of yourself that learned to survive on very little. And survival is not the same as living. There is a difference between the two that most people spend their entire lives trying not to notice. Before I keep going, I want to say something. If you're still here, this far into the video, that means something. It means you're not just looking for a quick tip or a shortcut. You're actually trying to understand yourself. And that's rarer than you think. So if this conversation has been worth your time, consider subscribing to the channel. We do this every day. Not hacks. Not highlights. Real conversations about money, psychology, and the life that sits between the two. Hit subscribe and stay close. Because people who are asking these questions deserve to be in a room with others asking the same ones. And that's exactly who watches this channel. Now, back to where we were. Because here's the part that actually matters. All of this, the scripts, the identity, the emotional spending, the self-worth, none of it is permanent. The brain is not a fixed machine. It's a living system. And living systems can be rewired. Not overnight. Not with a single video or a single book or a single moment of clarity. But gradually, consistently, through a process that starts with one thing above everything else. Awareness. Not the shallow kind. Not the kind where you nod along and then go back to your habits. The real kind. The kind that sits with you at the grocery store when you reach for something you don't need. The kind that shows up when you're about to undersell yourself in a negotiation. The kind that whispers, "Wait, why am I doing this?" That question, "Why am I doing this?" is the beginning of everything. Because behavior without awareness is just repetition. And repetition is how patterns survive for decades without ever being challenged. The people who break the cycle aren't always the smartest or the most disciplined. They're the ones who got honest with themselves. About what they actually believed. About what they were actually afraid of. About what story they had been living inside of without ever choosing it. That honesty is uncomfortable. It asks you to look at things you'd rather not see. But it's the only door that leads somewhere different. Everything else is just rearranging furniture in the same room. There's a moment. And if it hasn't happened yet, it will. A moment where you're standing somewhere ordinary, in your kitchen, in your car, in the middle of a conversation, and something clicks. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet, almost uncomfortable recognition that the life you've been living was built on decisions you never consciously made. That moment doesn't fix everything. But it changes the angle. And when the angle changes, everything you look at starts to look different. You start noticing the pattern before it completes. You start catching the old script mid-sentence. You start feeling the pull towards self-sabotage a half second earlier, and that half second is enough. That half second is where freedom lives. This is not about becoming someone who is obsessed with money. The people who are obsessed with money are usually just as trapped as the people who avoid it. This is about becoming someone who has a clear, honest, peaceful relationship with what money actually is. A tool. Nothing more. Nothing more than that. It doesn't define your worth. It doesn't measure your character. It doesn't tell the story of who you are or what you deserve. It is a tool. And like any tool, what matters is whether you know how to use it, and more importantly, whether you understand why you've been using it the way you have. The people who stay broke their entire lives are not unlucky. They are unaware. And the line between those two things is thinner than most people want to admit. You are not your patterns. You are not your parents' relationship with money. You are not the ceiling that was built above you before you were old enough to question it. But you do have to choose to live like that's true. Every day. In small decisions that nobody else will see or celebrate. That's the unglamorous reality of change. It happens in private. It happens slowly. And one day you look back and realize the person you used to be is someone you can barely recognize anymore. Not because life handed you something different. Because you finally stopped handing yourself the same thing. If this video made you think, really think, share it with 5 people you actually care about. Not because of the algorithm. Because some conversations need to be had, and most people don't know how to start them. Hit that subscribe button, and come back tomorrow. We'll keep going. And leave a comment below. Tell me honestly, what did this bring up for you? And tell me what you want us to talk about next. I read them. Everyone.